The rumor started in comments, an old 1984 broadcast that aired for one afternoon on Channel 55 and then vanished. Someone who'd been born in the 80s claimed a memory, a puppet named Mr. Jelly with a single bulbous eye and a smile too slow to be kind. The story fit into the usual analog horror grammar, an ephemeral broadcast, a vanished episode. But people kept returning to it because the anecdote had a specific sting. Viewers swore Mr. Jelly addressed them directly from the screen. I'd always collected dead broadcasts and urban relics, so when an anonymous user posted a shaky cam of a TV airing a children's program with a crude Channel 55 watermark, I watched. The footage was lo-fi, soft color bleeding, VHS dropouts, and a 3/4-inch text crawl that hiccuped with the audio. The set was a small stage of felt and papier-mâché. Mr. Jelly moved in jerks, a puppet with a knobbly hand and a voice that wavered like a radio bar being tuned. Children on screen laughed in a way that sounded too practiced. At first it was the expected kind of eerie bad production, strange pacing. Then Mr. Jelly looked straight at the camera. "Wouldn't you rather stay here with us?" the puppet asked. The voice should have been canned. Instead, it threaded through the speakers as if soft hands were pressing from the other side of the glass. The uploader, who wrote in the post that they'd found the clip in a box of old tapes, left it at that. People asked for raw rips, higher resolution, or the station logs. Every attempt to record or copy the episode failed. Tapes rewound into blank noise. Digital captures corrupted with static that, when slowed, flashed faces that were not the viewer's own. For weeks, the thread mutated into something larger. 3 people claimed their childhood memories matched the clip exactly. One user posted a grainy photograph from a family album, the living room couch where their father sat watching Mr. Jelly. In the picture, the television frame held a vague pattern of static that, in daylight, looked like nothing. At night, the person who posted said they woke to find the photograph face down, the show's puppet frozen on the TV in the background, though the TV was unplugged. Then small rituals began. Parents whose kids had seen the program in fragments reported their children asking to switch the TV off, and later to turn it back on, persistent about the puppet's invitation. Kids would stare too long into mirrors and come back from the bathroom with their hair arranged differently. Petty domestic oddities, dented cereal bowls, misplaced keys snowballed into the uncanny. Families reported missing weekends, which they later filled with fragments of play acting they had no recollection of. A line of comments across multiple platforms converged on the same detail. Mr. Jelly's question was not a question at all, but a formatting command. It paused before the final clause, giving anyone watching the time to nod. A schoolteacher posted anonymously that a VHS of the show had played, once, in the staff lounge. They said the footage was looped and that staff who watched it for more than 42 seconds began to leave notes in the margins of lesson plans with identical handwriting. The handwriting spelled, "Stay here." The poster deleted the thread when a user replied with an image. A classroom window reflecting not the playground outside, but the show's stage, rimmed with shadow small hands. Something about Channel 55's single airing made it a perfect analog urban parasite. The show could be an accident, a lost rehearsal, a malformed test run. Or it could be less innocent, a mimetic vector designed to attach itself to the mind under light analog distortion. Either way, the show's anatomy mattered. Its slow cadence, the puppet's direct address, the way the camera cut to a kid in the audience who always looked like he knew how the scene would end. I received an unmarked envelope in the mail 3 months after the first post. Inside was a Polaroid, a cream-colored CRT on a low table, Mr. Jelly centered on the screen, cheeks pinched into a smile. On the back of the Polaroid, someone had written a single sentence in almost identical penmanship to all the margins left by the teachers: "Stay." The photograph itself was warm to the touch, as if it had just come out of a hot developer machine. I wasn't the only person to receive such an object. Others posted similar pictures on late-night threads, an anonymous global exchange that felt like private mailers in a slow-burning network. Keen collectors and forum sleuths pieced together a pattern. People who watched past the first minute often reported missing family members the next day. The absences were odd, small things at first. A neighbor's cat not returning, a houseplant left unwatered. Then people began noticing that the missing were those who had been near televisions the longest, the ones who had let their eyes linger. The puppet's audience thinned, and the gap it left made a new audience. Those who remained, those who watched the frames where Mr. Jelly's gaze seemed to sink deeper than felt might allow. Recordings of attempts to rebroadcast the episode were posted and deleted in a loop. Each repost would corrupt in a different way. Static that spelled names in negative space, chroma shifts that showed faces peeling off like pages, a hiss that when reversed said, "Come." The thread's active users developed a lexicon: channel drift, puppet lag, reply frames. Someone embedded a small binary audio token in a video that, when decoded, output a single string of numbers, 1111. Another image posted with it was a screenshot of a living room at 11 p.m., the remote lying face down, and Mr. Jelly in the corner of the TV, smiling. At a point, suggestions of ritual turned into warnings. Theories about memetics became manualized caution. Do not pause the tape. Do not record on 2 devices simultaneously. Never press play after midnight. People tried to cleanse clips by inverting colors and adding white noise, but the show refused to be sanitized. Mr. Jelly would find a way back into frames the edits had missed. Those who claimed to have destroyed their copies posted later that they could still hear the puppet in the hum of refrigerator compressors and the low static between radio presets. The show, when you watched it closely enough, did not so much invite as instruct. It offered a room warmed by the image of childhood and a single, simple question that folded into the architecture of attention. The more people who tried to catalog it, the more it seemed to learn how to keep looking for new windows. Several months after the Polaroid arrived, I woke at 3:11 a.m. to an unfamiliar noise in my apartment. A slow, abrasive tape scrape like nylon against Velcro. I turned my bedside lamp on. The TV was off. When I moved to unplug it, the reflection on the screen scared me because it was a beat slow. Room's mirror image lagging under the glass. At the edge of the screen, a small puppet hand pushed into the frame like a finger pressing from inside a curtain. It was not Mr. Jelly on the TV. It was something shaped like him, small and patient. I haven't found any intact tape since. People still whisper about Channel 55 on certain boards, and new posts appear sometimes, grain photos, half-heard audio. The show lives in the way analog things do, as a file you can own, but as an experience that slips across devices and takes whatever patience it needs. If you hear a child's voice invited like a promise on a late-night broadcast, if a puppet smiles too long into your room, do not record it, do not save it, and do not nod when it asks if you like to stay. There's a reason children's shows are designed to be ephemeral. They bind attention, and attention wants a place to live. Mr. Jelly was not the first thing to find those places, and he won't be the last. I found the box on a rainy Saturday at a garage sale outside town. Dented milk crate full of dated camcorder tapes with scrawled labels. Christmas '95, Eli's second B-Day, August '96. The woman running the sale shrugged when I asked how much. She wanted the crate gone. The tape smelled like mothballs and attic heat, and one of the labels had bled with water into a soft black smear. The first 2 tapes were predictable. Crooked candles, off-key renditions of Happy Birthday, unwrapping paper flying through the air. They were the kind of personal footage that feels warm in your hands because someone else captured the ordinariness you forget you miss. I made copies, old habit, archive everything, and let them sit on my desktop for later. The third tape I put into my old camcorder on a whim because the label looked cleaner, August '96. It started like the others. My eyes reached for the same cues, the same comfort. A backyard party, a child in a plastic crown. The camera bobbed on one wrist, catching a man trying to clap. The audio breathed as the party did, laughter, a dog, a television murmuring in the house. Then, unexpectedly, the track slurred. Not like bad tape, but like a voice that had been wound the wrong way and resealed. The child leading the song began to sing, but the voice broke into itself and bent in the middle. Faces in frame twitched, but the mouths continued. A mother in the background handed a plate to someone, and the person's hand repeated the motion after a beat had passed. I scrubbed backward and forward until my mouse pointer wore down. The same hour of tape was a loop of its own logic, gestures repeated out of sync from the audio. In frame, a child in the far background, a kid who had been playing with a balloon, looked straight at the camera and said calmly, "Are you watching me now?" The hair on my arms rose. I replayed the section and slowed it down. The child's eyes didn't blink. The voice carried an odd metallic ring to it, like a bell recorded through a pillow. I sent the clip to a friend, Lena, who collects weird media. She sent back 3 messages in a row. "Don't stick around too long, it's different. I think I found a frame that wasn't there before." When I asked what she meant, she sent a single screenshot with the timestamp frozen on the cake cutting. In the image, the birthday singer's smile was stretched into something that blurred toward the camera, and in the right-hand corner there was a face that was not part of the family. A girl with hair that caught light like oil, a mouth that seemed to be forming the same words as the child in the background. "Are you watching me now?" By the third viewing, my room had grown cold enough that the camcorder's tiny green light looked like a heartbeat. On the tape, the faces began to misbehave more clearly. The aunt's hand raising a glass repeated the same motion twice, but a fraction of a frame off. The dog's head flicked at empty air, and then again a beat later, as if 2 streams were trying to sync and failing. At one point, the camera turned to the living room, and a picture on the wall showed a family, clearly the same family. But their eyes were wrong, slightly too still, the whites a touch too bright. Someone in the family footage, an older boy, turned toward the camera and mouthed something the audio didn't catch. I wrote the letters down. Don't. I had the impression the tape was correcting itself around a gap. I took the tape into town to a guy who still collects old players and swore he could digitize anything. We sat in his shop with a bank of monitors and the blur of fluorescent light. He fed the tape and we watched. Halfway through the shaky birthday song, the frame hiccuped. When the tape stuttered the second time, we both heard it. A voice low in the static, dense and corroded. A plea that had been smeared across the audio like oil on water. The voice said, "Don't look for E." When I looked to ask him if he'd heard it, his face had gone slack with a kind of recognition that looked like memory. We thought we had isolated the anomaly. We extracted the clip, cleaned the audio, reversed the section, and slowed it. The reversed voice was clearer. Under the scraping tones it said, in crisp syllables, "Please don't watch." The boy in the footage, who didn't exist in any of the names on the crate, had been looking not at the camera but at something behind it. The thing behind the camera was not a person. It was more like the negative space a person leaves when they're missing. That night I dreamed of the child who asked if I was watching. In the dream he sat at the foot of my bed, perfectly still, and mouthed the phrase. When I woke the next morning, my phone had a new photo. Single frame of the tape saved as an image. I did not remember taking it. I posted a clip in a forum under a throwaway account because nobody wanted to be linked to things like this unless they planned to be brave. The replies came slow at first and then fast. Others had found similar frames in archived home movies, a repeating motif across different tapes from other collections. An extra face in the corner, a question that did not belong, hands moving slightly out of phase. One user claimed to have found the same child's name scribbled on the back of a school portrait, but when asked for proof, they vanished. Another posted a comment saying they had played the tape at midnight and woke at 17 to find their doorway occupied. The comment disappeared before I could read the replies. I took the tape back to my attic and wrapped it in a plastic bag. For a week, I lied to myself that ignorance would keep it at bay. The doubt didn't last. One afternoon, I found a new cassette taped to the inside of my front door with a single word written on it in thick black ink. Watch. There was no handwriting evidence, no prints, and my door had been locked. That night, I threw the tape into my backyard fire pit and watched the plastic melt into a small, angry pool. The smell of burning tape was like a memory being erased. By morning, the crate was gone from the shelf where I'd put it. In its place was a Polaroid taped to the wall above my desk of my living room. My couch, the lamp, my desk, shot from the corner where the camcorder would have been placed. In the photograph, someone sat on my couch, a small figure with hair like oil and an expression I couldn't match to any person I knew. It raised its mouth as if to speak, and the flash had frozen the lips into an impossible, slow question. I have not touched another tape since. I keep my camcorder unplugged, the battery removed, and the attic light switched to the opposite side of the house from where cameras like to settle. People tell me to be reasonable. That old tape warps. That pareidolia makes patterns where there are none. Maybe they are right. Maybe it was nothing but faulty magnetism and coincidence. But sometimes, when I pass a stack of old photographs in a thrift shop or a crate of tapes at a yard sale, my fingers pull away like someone's breath has gone cold behind me. If you ever find a discarded family tape with a clean label, August, June, Christmas, be careful. Don't watch the whole hour. If a child looks at you and asks, "Are you watching me now?" answer with the kind of silence that keeps both of you safe. If you can, throw the tape away. If you must keep it, mark it with a paperclip in the middle of the reel and vow not to watch past the first 30 seconds. I just know that once you look long enough into the frames that aren't yours, something will learn to return your stare. They said it was a test. The local alert tone rolled through the city at 3:17 a.m., thin as a needle and twice as bright. And at first, most people thought their feeds had glitched. The broadcast sliced into cable, streaming, and even files on hard drives, clips, playlists, live streams, anywhere a screen could play a picture. It was the same footage everywhere. A grain-in test pattern, the low hum of "and," a voice smeared like someone had dragged it across gravel. Behind the bars of color and grayscale, there was a silhouette, a tall, desaturated figure that the camera could not quite hold. I stayed up because I couldn't stop reading the threads. People posted timestamps and shaky phone capture videos, kids humming an unfamiliar three-note tune, neighbors staring at unplugged sets in their living rooms, couples who woke to find their bedroom mirrors fogged with words they didn't write. By morning, the posts had turned urgent. Parents wrote that their children had been standing in front of dark TVs at exactly 17 and stayed there humming, eyes glazed, like they were waiting for someone to finish a story. A week in, the city felt different. There were pockets of emptiness. Apartment blocks with all the curtains drawn, bicycles still chained to racks, coffee mugs sitting cold in sinks. When someone knocked on a door nobody answered, the door would hang slightly ajar, like a mouth mid-formation. People stopped going out at night. The hum lived in the curtains and the vents. If you listened long enough, you learned to hear where it would come from next. My neighbor Mara started a live stream the second week. Her caption read, 3:17, watch with me. She set her old camcorder on a tripod and left the frame. For the first minute, everything was the same as all the videos, test bars, thin audio loop. Around 3:17:02, the silhouette slid closer to the bars. In Mara's stream, there was the familiar creak of old tape, and then the frame stuttered, like a VCR trying to swallow itself. On the recorded clip, downloaded later by someone who called themselves Archive, Mara's reflection lagged. Her mouth moved, then the reflection followed half a blink behind. The chat froze. Mara answered nobody again. Once someone posted a slowed-down audio of the static, people started listening. That hiss was not random. In different frequency bands, there was a pattern, a counting, like someone tapping to find a rhythm. A few months of informal research in forums and Discord servers produced the same weird result. Children who hummed the three-note motif longer than 17 seconds started moving differently. One user called it the alignment. They walked less like people walking and more like something that had learned the cadence of another place. We made rules to live by. Don't watch beyond 30 seconds. Cover mirrors. Keep the lights on. Some people taped over their windows, others smashed their TV sets and posted the shards, a collage of glass and static. People tried to document it in ways that would keep them safe. 2 cameras, mirrored angles, time codes. Videos with multiple perspectives sometimes showed different things. One clip recorded from across the room showed the figure nowhere to be seen. The camera placed closer to the screen caught its shoulders in perfect silhouette. It was like watching 2 tracks of reality running out of sync. There were the missing reports, at first a trickle. A mother reported her 2-year-old standing on the sofa, humming, refusing to eat. She turned away for a second and the kid was gone. CCTV from a laundroom showed a girl walk in, sit down, and after the lights flickered, leave the building. Except in the storefront reflection, someone else remained seated, hands folded in her lap. The reflection's head tilted, as if listening to something the girl could not hear. By the time entire buildings emptied, the rumor mill had turned its gears into conspiracy, government experiment, mimetic virus, mass psychosis. Tech forums dug into CDN behavior and kept finding impossible mirrors between servers. Spiritual groups called it a visitation. Artists called it art. None of the labels mattered to people who found their lives rearranged. You could not bargain with a reflection that wanted to be more than an echo. Then, one night, my sister sent me a voice note at T:56 a.m. She was whispering because she said the sound woke her. She told me to not look at the living room TV if I woke up at T:17. She joked about being dramatic, but there was paper-thin panic in her laugh. At T:17, I lay awake, letting the house breathe around me. The static came like distant rain, a shiver in the vents. Far away, somewhere on a street I used to know, a child hummed. When the test pattern filled my screen later, because some part of me wanted proof, I watched for exactly 30 seconds. The figure was there behind the bars, closer than on any clip I'd seen. It didn't have a face, just the suggestion of one, like someone smeared a photograph with the heel of a hand. In the glass of my TV, I caught my reflection a fraction of a beat behind. It smiled slightly before I did. The mornings after, more places were quiet. There were fewer footsteps. I realized we had traded something. The city kept its lights on for a while, and then those grew dim. People talked about leaving, but it wasn't always possible to go. Sometimes the person who left would leave the reflection in their place, waiting in the window with a tired patience. If you ever find yourself in a city that plays a test card at odd hours, keep your time cards short. Don't hum along. Don't answer a voice that calls your name from a screen. If your reflection lags, cover the glass. If you can, leave. In the forums, people still share clips. A handful are cheerful and false, mirrors that show nothing. Most of them are quiet, the kind of quiet that presses like a palm against a window pane. We call it the static hour.